What is up, you lovely fucking specimens? It is your boy Rogue X, okay, and welcome back to another video. And I do apologize straight off the bat for not uploading for so long. There was just a lot of shit going on, honestly, but I am glad to say that I'm back, and I'm being honest as fuck. I am going to try my hardest. I already said this, I'm going to try my hardest to try and upload every single day, and now that I'm doing this video, I feel great. And I wasn't feeling burnt out or anything. For starters, I was binge watching Rick and Morty, so that is my first excuse. But next, I would just like to say that this What If is going to be featured on both my channel and Bleach Unbound's channel. And obviously, if you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, today we're doing What If Deku was Scarface. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this is because, you probably don't know this, but my favorite movie of all time is none other than Scarface, a movie released in 1983, played by Al Pacino, and probably one of the greatest sort of gangster drug lord type movies out there. And this is going to be cool because I'm going to give Deku a unique quirk, cool backstory, and we're going to be going over a decent amount. I'm going to be doing half, and my boy Aizen is going to be doing the other half. So yeah, this is going to be on both of our channels. Doesn't matter which one you watch, but please do check out his channel, link in the description. He also made the thumbnail for this, so big shout outs to him. Now, before I do actually jump into this What If, or not just me, but Aizen himself as well, I'd just like to say that this is going to be a older experience type of video. I'll just like to state that off the bat. So if you are younger, I would recommend you not watch this, but if you still want to, that is your choice. You just might not understand some of the things being said. You have been warned. If you get in trouble, it is not my fault, and you can go fuck yourself. So, apart from that, let's get straight into this What If. Okay, so, usually I would start off from Deku's birth here. However, things are obviously going to be running a little bit differently, and I do genuinely mean that, because there are a couple of things that I'm going to do. Now, me and the boy Aizen, okay, are going to be doing this 50-50. I did just mention this, but I thought I'd mention it again, because it's kind of important. We're going to be changing a couple of things, okay, and we will go into that as we are talking about it, but overall, I'm going to start Deku off at age 16, right? Now, basically, we start off with, his biological name being Izuku Midoriya, an outcast, a mother who abandoned him, and, not really. Putting it into better words, from an outside perspective, it would look as though his mother abandoned him, but overall, Deku chose to not stay with his family because of the trouble he was getting into. And he did have a baby sister, and she will be revealed later. And no, her name is not going to be Gina, so yeah. Also, as for the people who haven't watched Scarface, I guarantee you a huge percentage of the people watching this have not watched both Scarface and My Hero Academia. But seriously, if you have, you're an actual mad lad, so shout out to you. But if you haven't watched Scarface, literally go watch it. If your excuse for not watching is because it looks old, you can literally go suck on the ugliest pair of toes you can find, which are no doubt your own. Or at least if your excuse is that it's because it's too old. Anyway, besides me being, a little too unfiltered for my my own standards, we're going to get back into my boy Deku himself. Now, what would have happened, okay, is as he was growing up and he hit the age of, 6, really 7, he would be a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And because of this, it will eventually get him into trouble. Age 8, he'll be acting like, Antonio Montana, not as, ruthless as he is the whole movie, but he would slowly be growing into that, And at the moment, he does not have the scar. I will tell you how he gets the scar, and then, we can get into the good shit. However, like I was saying, he would go to juvie at 8, and this would harden him a little more, and not in a weird way, I just mean like it would toughen him up. He would learn better hand-to-hand combat skills for his age, so as he's starting to more physically mature through ages 10 to 12, he would start learning a lot about money, and he would be very smart. Now, overall, okay, Tony himself, like the actual Tony Montana, or Antonio Montana, I'm gonna refer to him as Tony or Antonio sometimes, depends, but nonetheless, Tony, he didn't have a proper education in the series, but he does know his numbers, and he knows his money really well. So that's basically going to be Deku in this, except because it's Deku, right? It's not Tony specifically, it's just sort of same personality, attitude, and, well, a unique ability, which I will also get into, which is going to be awesome, okay? And I hope, you know, some people will understand how awesome it is. But nonetheless, right? Because it is just Deku, okay? And it's sort of a mix between, you know, Tony's personality and Deku's, but we're going to give him Deku's intelligence, right? So this means that he's going to be better at strategizing, and he's going to be smarter at a whole lot of things, right? Which will give him potential in shit which we are going to go over. Now, like I was saying, okay, when it comes to roughly the age of 12, this is when shit would start to change for Deku. He would, you'd start taking the same path, right, to this house that he's crashing at for the time being. It's a friend that he made through school, and, you know, he is older than Deku, obviously, but, you know, he lives by himself, and he's allowing Deku to crash there for the time being, because obviously his mum is mad with him that Deku's acting like a quote-unquote bum, as she says in, you know, the movie. But nonetheless, okay. As he's taking the same street to and from his hideout for the time being, he would end up passing this house, very flashy house. Like, there's no denying it's a very flashy house. But during the day, roughly around maybe 10 to 12, so, you know, maybe breakfast or brunch to fucking lunchtime, there would be two people training. A very big guy with red hair who he would pretty much instantly recognize as the number 2 hero, and would just know that he's a raging asshole for some reason. So he would be like, oh, Gonyo, fuck, I know that guy. I can't do a, you know, Tony impression. I really wish I could, Like, I really wish I could. But sadly, I can't. If I try to, I end up sounding like Manny from the movie, which is actually kind of funny. But that's besides the point. Because some of you wouldn't even get that, you know, you don't even watch the movie. So stop what you're doing, pause this video, go watch the movie, and come back. It's like 2 hours and, well, like 40-50 minutes, like almost 3 hours. It's so worth it, though. It's so worth the time. I'm not even going to lie. Anyway, that's besides the point. Because if we get back into what I was saying, he would see that Endeavor is training what looks to be like his son, right? The same sort of hair, but it's half red and white, which means that, from basic assumptions, this guy has a quirk that allows him to both use fire and what seems to be ice, which also is kind of smart on Endeavor's behalf, because, you know, Tony casually picked up on sort of how that's working. And also, might I just say that he is known on the streets as Tony because, you know, the only thing he has is his balls and his word, and he ain't breaking them for no one. So, what would have happened, I didn't really explain this, but while he was in juvie, he would have gained the nickname Tony, and you know, then people would sort of just make it into Antonio Montana and, you know, full name, but that's like his sort of street name, if you will. That's his alias, because he doesn't really want people to know that he's the old Izuku Midoriya, you know, abandoned or decided to get the fuck out of his shitty family, or more specifically get away from his deadbeat dad and mother that really didn't care for him. But that's only because she was too busy caring for the sister, which, again, we will get into soon. Now, do keep in mind that we are still currently in a sort of recap mode. We're still going over the backstory of how, well, Deku and Todoroki meet. However, like I did say, my boy Deku has changed his name to Antonio Montana, and yeah, that's pretty much going to be that. Obviously, there will still be people who know his name and whatnot, but yeah, basically just saying that he would have legally changed his name to Tony, and this would have been as soon as he was able to jump into the black market, because then once he was able to go there, he was easily able to legally change his name, and it was pretty simple, even at the age he was. Now, back into the important stuff, okay? We were talking about how my boy Tony and how my boy Todoroki met. Now, obviously, because I know that it'll be weird for me to refer to, well, our poor, precious lollipop, Izuku Midoriya, you know, it'd be weird for me to be calling him Tony, so I still will refer to him as Deku, but other people will try to, well, no, sorry, not try to, they will call him or refer to him as Tony, you know what I mean? So, after watching them train and do all this shit, my boy Tony, he would very quickly realize that this is not right. What Endeavor is doing is literally child abuse, and it seems that he has a scar on his face from some other accident that also seems to be child abuse, and this just sort of pisses Deku off, you know. He would be like, that's, like, I don't know if I should go over there and kneecap this guy or what, like, I don't want to draw attention to myself, but look at that kid, man, like, fuck. And he would just look at his eyes and see how broken Todoroki is, you know, how unstable he is because of the amount of shit he's been going through. And I say that because what I've changed in this timeline as well is that it's a lot harsher on Todoroki. Basically, what would happen is his mother Rei would hate him a lot more, despise him a lot more because of his Endeavor side. Endeavor would train him beyond the fucking brink, and his other siblings obviously would have stayed away from him just in general, because they would have thought he was a freak as well, you know. And this would fuck with Todoroki very hard. Obviously, you know, Darby, that's a different situation. They would probably bond well if they met at this point or in this timeline. But he ran away, so there wasn't any chance for them to be nasty to each other. But that could potentially open something which, you know, Aizen might actually end up getting into. Maybe a reunion between brothers? I don't know. We'll think about it. Now, like I was saying, after witnessing this and seeing how, I guess, broken this kid is, and he's easily, like, the same age as Deku, and Deku would know this, like, immediately. And he would just think, oh, God, what do I do here? So he would wait until after the training's done. Todoroki would look completely exhausted, and do keep in mind that for outside appearances, Todoroki is classed as a very talented child, and he masks most of his unstableness through just smiling or sort of just being quiet, not really doing much. He wouldn't like smile too much because that'd be very unnatural for his character, but he would be very quiet, and he wouldn't get in anyone's way. I mean, he could, you know, fuck them up very easily, but that's what he's afraid of. He's afraid that he might, you know, accidentally kill someone, because that's sort of how unstable he is. But, you know, the more mental, fucking disabilities, the better the person, you know what I mean? No, that's not true, but I don't even know what I'm getting myself into here. Not that I really give a shit, but back to the story, because by the time it's all done, Deku would wait even a couple more hours towards nighttime, and then he would successfully sneak into the Todoroki household, into Todoroki's room, and would pretty much stand just, you know, at the head top of his futon, and would just sort of, like, be face to face with him, but not really, because his face is upside down, and by his face I mean Todoroki's. So yeah, like I said, he's squatting over the head of the fucking futon, and he would wake Todoroki up. Todoroki would go to sit up very quickly, but because my boy Deku knows he's about to headbutt him, he would just put his hand on his head to stop him from smashing their heads together. And Todoroki would slowly sit up while he says, you know, like, what are you doing here? You scared the living shit out of me. Do you want money? Are you trying to kill me? Like, what are you doing? And from here, this is when Deku would give his speech. Me? You can call me Tony. No, I'm not gonna try the Tony fucking, you know, what's the word? I'm not going to try and impersonate him or do an impression of him because I really cannot. Like I said, I genuinely can't, but fuck, I wish I could. Anyway, he'd pretty much just be like, you can call me Tony. I don't know if you've heard of me before, but I'm gonna be an up-and-coming, how should I say, leader, boss, king. I don't know how to explain it, but I've seen how you're treated by everyone in this house. That's not natural. We're roughly the same age, I'd say. If you stick with me, stay loyal to me, I can give you everything you've ever wanted. And, you know, maybe we can form a good relationship, you know? And this would be, like, spoken, honestly, from the heart, you know? Todoroki would be so, like, in disbelief, you know? Just summed up, just in disbelief at hearing this, because he wouldn't have thought anyone would be that nice to him. So, yeah, of course, the first time someone shows him genuine affection, it wasn't even affection, really, it was just like, will you come with me? Can you be my right-hand man, basically? And that was more than enough for Todoroki to say yes. So yeah, he would pretty much join the bandwagon, they would sneak out of there, and they would head back to the hideout. Now, pretty much from here, we can time skip all the way to where I want to start it, and that is going to be my boy Deku, or Tony, and Todoroki at ages 16. Now, by this point, they have actually got a couple of connections going. They're pretty much small-time dealers, right? They sell a little bit of yayo on the side, but mainly it's just marijuana, or I shall refer to as THC to not, you know, strike any guidelines, but just for, I guess, educational purposes. That is the chemical THC. There's also a lot of other chemicals in marijuana, but that is besides the point. And I would know nothing. I would know nothing about THC. I've never taken it in my life because I wear a cross around my neck and I'm a holy Christian child. Now, back to the story, as to not keep going on tangents. Like I was saying, they would start making a decent amount of money in their district. Now you're probably wondering, district? Kind of weird word to use. Now, I didn't explain this, but because of reasons that my boy Aizen will actually get into, because it is not too related, okay, to the story, but it has a little bit to do with it, and that's sort of why he's going to explain it, because he'll be able to explain it a lot better than I can. But every single big city in Japan pretty much has borders around it, every single one of them, and you need to, well, get borders and stamp passports, basically, or just proof of ID to go through to the next city, you know what I mean? And for lower class citizens, that means that to move into bigger neighborhoods, they're going to need other forms of ID, such as green cards or passports or so on and so forth, right? And this pretty much leads into the next thing, right? Which is going to be none other than that of the assassination of a political asshole. Let's say that through Todoroki's connections, because before they left the Todoroki household, Todoroki would have pretty much snatched all of the information that his dad had on his computer, because Endeavor was one to go into the underground and search for criminals to obviously heighten his rep for busting ass every single day of the week, 24/7. Yeah, you get the point. He needs to know about everything. He's trying to surpass All Might, right? Or at least get a better name than what All Might can. And obviously soon he's going to become number one, but no one really gives a shit about that at the moment. Actually, I don't think anyone really gave a shit about it until the Prominence burn, you know, the Plus Ultra one. That was fucking amazing though, might I just add. Anyway, end of tangent. Because what's gonna happen is, let's just say there's a really shady and shitty political member that needs to be taken care of, okay? Obviously, to get into the next district, which is where they are going to be able to actually start, you know, moving a little more yayo, making a little more money, right? Because, I don't know if you've watched the original movie, but let me just explain that in the scene, they were delivered, or their job was to pretty much deliver the buy money and get 2 keys of yayo. And pretty much, I'm going to explain what happened in My Hero, if you will. But that is, again, later. That's sooner in the story. So, yayo equals money, money equals yayo. You get the point. It's basically like a back and forth thing until you make a shit ton of money. And a shit ton of yayo. So, you get the point here. Sorta. That was a really bad explanation of it, but, you know, let's just roll with it, because honestly, no one gives a shit at the end of the day. There's not going to be too many people watching this. Anyway, so like I was saying, right? What would happen is they would find out that this political member is, at the moment, not on vacation as such, but he's sort of out of office because he has to lay low for a while, so he's staying at some sort of camp called Freedom Town. And yes, I am directly referencing the movie here. So my boy Tony / Deku and Todoroki would stroll on down to Freedom Town. They would dress up like every other rioter that's there, making a scene. And pretty much, like I was saying, through Todoroki's connections, obviously Deku would find out about the job. They can move into another district, like I was talking about before, and have a green card and a job, you know, until they start making some serious moolah. So yeah, that's some good shit. Anyway, basically what would happen is the assassination would play out just like it would have in the movie. They would start a riot. They would lead him into a like a tent, and then they would lead him out of the only exit that's there to where he would run into Deku with a knife and would get, well, carved up real nice, as Tony would have stated it to Todoroki. Now, from here, they would end up waiting a couple more days. They'd end up getting their green card, and they would then move with the money that they've made so far, which would be a decent amount, you know, enough to move and survive and live and all that shit that's, you know, necessary for life. And then once they've moved into the new place, they would get a very low-end job for the time being, washing dishes in a, I guess, pop-up. It's not even a pop-up store. It is an actual restaurant, but it's tiny. It's like one of those taco stands, basically, but it's an actual restaurant, sorta, with stools outside, you know, that sort of shit. But nonetheless, this would literally piss Deku off, right? You know, having to wash dishes, and he would get really mad while doing it. Like, he'd be like, yo, this is pissing me off. Like, he'd end up almost breaking a couple of things. Todoroki would ask him, you know, like, what's up? You know, like, why are you so stressed? And Deku would just be like, I did not come to this district to break my fucking back. Like, your friend better come up with something soon, eh? Otherwise, I'm gonna go fucking wild, basically, is what he would sum it up as. Now, you know, Todoroki would just calm him down and be like, yeah, nah, trust me, he will come up with something. Then there would be a smoke break, so they would go outside and they'd start puffing on some tobacco. But let me just say, tobacco is not good for you kids if you're watching this. Trust me, I know from, self-thing that tobacco is not good for you. I've seen it throughout multiple families, and I've seen addiction in little kids and teens and shit. It's really not good, so I do heavily recommend that, from, you know, seeing what it does to other people and whatnot, please don't. Do not get into that, because tobacco is like one of the most addictive fucking things out there, but it's legal. So, besides the point, you know, apart from the drug awareness and all that shit, they would go out, they'd have their smoke break, and then they would go back inside, and as they do, the owner would come up and say, yo, there's 2 guys waiting outside for you. So, they would go out, and they would meet up with these 2 people. Now, obviously, they're not going to be the, like, exact people that you're expecting, but they work for Chisaki. It's the guy with the diamonds who can grow the diamonds, and the other one is what's his name? Rapper, that's his name. Oh my god, I almost forgot. Yeah, and it's Rapper. Now, yes, Rapper is a little big to be in a little car like that, but the car is going to be not significantly bigger. It's going to be a little bigger just to fit him. You know what I mean? But that's besides the point. Because this is when Todoroki would introduce himself, and then would introduce Tony. Introduce. Sorry, not induce. That made 0 sense. He would introduce Tony, and basically this is where their job would come into play. This is when the Diamond Head guy, I can't remember his name. Okay, I just googled it. His name is Yu Hojo, like Yu from the Boxer webcomic. Love that guy. So yeah, Yu and Rapper would be sitting there, you know, Rapper would be driving, and Yu would pretty much say, you know, we've got a job for you, it's $500 each, you gotta move, you know, a certain amount of THC, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, yeah, you know what, let's call it this, devil's lettuce, okay? They have to, you know, ship a certain amount of devil's lettuce on a boat, and it's 500 each, and you know, Deku would immediately point out and say, what, do you, like, think we're handling fucking suitcases here? Like, what is this? You know that the rate is at least $1,000 a night on a boat, like, even more, maybe $1,500. And then, obviously, Yu's gonna fight back while, obviously, taking more blow or yayo up the nose. And would pretty much just say, you know, you gotta work your way up from 500. And, then from here, it's pretty much going to be sort of the same convo, except Deku's going to take it a little more serious, just a little bit, you know. Also, might I just continue to say this? He doesn't have his scar yet, okay? Not just yet, although that will be upcoming soon. Now, what would happen is, you would say, yo, what's with this dishwasher, bro? Like, I thought you said you got me some serious clients here. And, Deku would just sort of snap and be like, hey, watch your fucking mouth. Don't call me no dishwasher, otherwise I'll pull you out this card and fucking beat your ass. And that would pretty much just be, obviously it'd be a lot more ruthless than that, but I don't know how far I'm allowed to go with, cursing on YouTube before they, take me down, so I'm not gonna try and test the limits. I'll stick to my own little range of cuss words. Now, besides that, you know, there would almost be a fight breakout. You know, there would almost be one. However, Rapper would be able to hold him back and say, look, as much as I would love to fight right now, just give him, you know, the yayo. Let him deal with the Colombians and shit. And by Colombians, yes, I do mean like legitimate Colombians and shit that come into Japan and also deal coke. You know, that's very rare nowadays, but probably back in the days it happened at multiple points or another, no doubt. However, this is different because this is fiction, so I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Nonetheless, with the mentioning of the Colombians, you know, you would automatically know that, oh, okay, you know, sweet, this means we can push him into the yayo side of things, which does make a lot more money, and it is a higher risk, but at the end of the day, it brings more money in for everyone, so it's a win-win. And, yeah, it'd be like, yeah, okay then, right, if you want to be a big tough guy. We're having, Colombians come in, right, meet them at such and such location, then we'll give you the buy money, you can go to, you know, the motel that they've given us a location of, and, yeah, deal goes down, you get $5,000 each. And, they would both look at each other before sort of just, you know, having different reactions. Deku's face would still stay somewhat straight with, like, you know, is this guy fucking serious? Like, why didn't he just start with this offer from the beginning? Like, that makes no sense. Like, what the... Like, he would just overall have that feeling to just punch him in the face. But, you know, Todoroki would look a lot happier. He'd go, oh, damn, $5,000 each. That sounds good. But yeah, I mean, money's money at the end of the day, so I don't blame him for thinking that. Oh, and then you would proceed to enforce the fact that if anything happens to the buy money, he will thoroughly regret it by saying something that I'm definitely not going to repeat on YouTube. Another reason to go watch Scarface now. It's like I'm promoting Scarface. That would be amazing. Anyway, so point of this is, though, they would drive away and, you know, Todoroki would say, yo, next time maybe you should calm down, you know, you could get us in shit. And Deku would just tell him to calm down, you know, no need to stress so much, you know, oh, you're gonna get a heart attack if you stress too much. So they would have also got some separate instructions during that conversation that they're gonna need to bring a couple machine guns, maybe a couple of friends, just to sort of deal with whatever's happening here. And, you know, that's all good, honestly. I understand why. And they sort of already would have known this as well, just sort of deep down. Anyway, it would take maybe a couple of hours to get everything ready, guns and everything included. Now, as for, you know, Todoroki and, you know, Deku's aim, they are vastly different, mainly just due to the fact that Todoroki doesn't use a gun, he instead uses his quirks. And, as for, you know, Omar and them talking about guns or machine guns, they weren't specifically talking about the machine guns, they were talking about what's in them, referring to quirk-erasing bullets. So yes, quirk-erasing bullets are a thing a lot earlier than you would think, and that's just because a lot of prototypes were made and whatnot. And at first, you know, that would seem quite amazing to Deku, because it means, you know, that means I can take out so many motherfuckers, damage them, and also take away their quirks so they can never use that power again. Like, that's, like, amazing. Although, he is yet to find out about the secret behind how they're made. But oh boy, once he does... Nah, jokes. Or am I? That doesn't matter. I don't even know what I'm going on about. But seriously though, talking about the story overall, I think I should stop going off on tangents. But sadly, it's inbuilt into me, so I can't help it. But yeah, anyway, like I was talking about, the whole Omar situation, he just means bring men you trust who have strong abilities or, you know, quirk-erasing bullets. As for, you know, Deku himself, he is currently quirkless, that is true. And, I'm pretty sure Yu knows this. I don't know if I referred to Yu as Omar, but that's sort of who they're representing in the movie. Besides the point though, because, like I was saying, they would get the band together, you know, get the boys, not the band, they'd get the boys together, and then they would meet up, they'd get the buy money, and then they would proceed to head to the location. Now, from here, Deku would grab their attention, and they would make sure that they are paying, like, full attention, undivided attention to him. He would then pretty much say, look, me and Todoroki are gonna go inside. If we're not out in 15 minutes, something's wrong. Now, when I come to get the buy money, it has to be me and me only. You understand? They would nod, and then pretty much they'd say, alright, let's go. And by they, I sort of am referring to Deku and Tony. It's Doni. Anyway, I'm going to refer to him as Deku, so you know who I'm talking about. But to everyone else, it's Tony, or Antonio. Besides the point though, because Deku and Todoroki, they would head to the apartment, and Deku would make sure that his gun tucked into his pants, that is hidden, so no one else can, well, see the fact that he's carrying around a gun in public, but yeah. Anyway, the two would make it to the top, they would knock on the door, and they would be invited in. Now, only, Deku would be allowed to walk in, while Todoroki stands at the door. Deku would ask, though, if he could leave the door open just so, as his brother can see inside and make sure everything's okay. Now, from here, he would walk in, they would give an introduction with each other. The names really aren't important because they're not going to be around for, well, too long. you know, because it is a deal. It's not a feast. It's not a fucking buffet or anything. But nonetheless, they would exchange introductions. There'd also be a chick on the bed that they have introduction with. It'd just be an exchanging of name. And then, pretty much, Deku would say, you got the stuff. And, you know, the seller would say, well, you got the money. And, you know, pretty simple. Deku would say, yeah, I've got it, just not on me. And, well, the seller would say the same thing. And then, pretty much, as they ask each other where they've put their stuff, it would lead in that of saying not far. It would just be dragging on the conversation. So Deku would say, well, look, do you want me to come in and we just start over again? Like, when are you gonna start doing business with me? And, like, stop fucking me around. And this is when suddenly Todoroki would be dragged inside by someone with a gun aimed to his head. And, for some reason, this gun stands out a lot more than normal, right? It's not a gun that holds ordinary bullets. The bullets seem a little longer for some reason. And then he would realize that that is a semi-automatic syringe pistol. So the first thing that goes through Naruto's head is, oh shit, that's a quirk-erasing bullet. So, Deku would obviously go to pull the gun out of his back pocket, but the chick who's laying in the bed would proceed to pull out an automatic MAC-10 with a suppressor on it, and, yeah, that would be that. He would get his gun taken off him and thrown at the wall. From here, the seller would pretty much just say, okay, you're gonna give me the money, and, Deku would say the first thing that comes to his mind. The fact that you've just gone and tried to steal from me has sealed your fate. You're going to die now. And seller would act all tough and be like, oh yeah? How about you give me the money, otherwise maybe I'll just kill your friend in front of you. Or kill you in front of your friend, and then I'll force him to tell me where the money is. And Deku, obviously, he's in smart-ass mode at the moment, so he's gonna say, how about you try sticking your head up your ass and see if it fits? The seller would obviously get enraged by this, so he'd say, you wanna play that way? So he would go over, open a case, which would have 2 keys of yayo, but would also have a chainsaw in there. So from here, because the seller is very enraged with Tony, he would proceed to strap him up in the bathroom, turn up the TV volume, and would start up the chainsaw. And first things first, he's going to pretty much cut through his left eye, trying to mutilate his skull basically. However, something unexpected is going to happen. Now, what will happen is as the chainsaw inches closer towards his face, he would sort of have his life flash before his eyes, as well as, I guess, giving a final fuck you, pretty much spitting in his face. And then the chainsaw would connect with his face and would leave that iconic scar that he is pretty much represented for. The scar on the face, making none other than Scarface himself. Now, what would happen is as soon as this scar forms on his face, I guess something explosive would come out, like an inner energy, if you will. It would be unsealed and it would sort of engulf Tony with an aura that is just red, right? And this is his rage. Now, what would happen is he would break out of the cuffs that he's in and would give him a good right jab straight to the chest, imprinting his fist into the seller's chest, knocking the chainsaw out of his hand and slamming him straight back into the wall. From here, Todoroki would freeze the cuffs and would proceed to pretty much take care of the other guys who were in there. And this was all before the 15-minute mark, so what would happen is they would search the room and, then Deku would remember where he pulled the chainsaw out of, so check that case. There'd be the 2 keys of yayo. So Todoroki would pull out a bag that he was carrying until, they got stuffed into a bathroom and almost mutilated by a chainsaw. But thank God to this mysterious awakening of power. Now, that's probably what you want me to explain right now, correct? And yes, Todoroki wants an explanation too, but to be honest, he's just glad that they're both alive. He doesn't really give a fuck. If he wants to explain it, he can explain it. If he doesn't want to, that's his choice. Now, what I'm currently thinking of calling it is the spirit of Montana, or maybe the spirit of Scarface, or maybe I was just thinking of calling the quirk itself Scarface, because it does regard the scar on his face, and I'm about to explain why. Now, this power has a main function, and this main function splits into two separate powers. Now, do keep in mind that there is a power above the other two powers, a lot stronger than them, okay, or has the potential to be a lot stronger than them, but it's more like a hidden ability that won't be discovered until certain requirements are met. So for the time being, he's only got these other two abilities. Now, the one that you had just heard about / witnessed is the more angry Tony gets, the more powerful he gets. And by powerful, I mean physically, like physical strength, physical strongness, and just that sort of power, right? By power, I mean like muscle power. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why he was able to easily jab him into a wall, leaving a decent crater in there and pretty much killing him instantly. And yes, do keep in mind that these two are not heroes, so they do not save people or arrest bad guys. They themselves can be classified as bad guys, as Tony explained in his speech about the bad guy, which is a good speech, one of the many, many reasons to watch Scarface. Anyway, as for the other part of the power, it is pretty much the more he acts and talks like Antonio Montana, the more he is persuasive, if you will. The better he is with his speech, rather, whether he decides to take the intimidation route, the, I guess persuasion route, or the manipulation route. Pretty much that has its three separate offsprings of just speech, but he basically has speech 100 from Skyrim summed up. Now, besides that, he will figure that out in his own time, but I thought I'd just tell you because it's not as big of a reveal as it is for the secret ability, which is going to be awesome, might I just add. But yeah, quickly, we'll currently catch up to what's happening, okay? Todoroki is currently stashing the 2 keys of Yayo in his duffel bag, and as that's happening, one chick would suddenly, right, just stomp through the door. And this would sort of leave both Deku and Todoroki sort of standing there in confusion and a little bit of shock. This is when, Lady Nagant introduces herself. Now, she would pretty much only walk in there just for the fact that she wanted to check what the noise was, right? Because she would have heard the fire, like the crackling, the super punch that Deku had pretty much set off, and would just know that there was something going on. So from here, Deku would sort of just briefly explain what's happening and would say, "You don't look like much of a hero." Actually, wait. I know you. You're an ex-hero. Holy shit. You're Lady Nagant, right? And she would just sort of not look embarrassed, but she would look just sort of sad as she nods and says, "Yeah, that's me." And Deku would sort of just comfort her by saying, "Don't stress, we're not going to hate you for that, but I would pretty much just say keep your mouth shut, otherwise, you don't want to see what happens when we go down that road." And Lady Nagant was like, "Nah, I wasn't looking for any trouble. I actually do have a proposition for you, though." Deku would then look at Todoroki and say, "Oi, bro, take the yayo and go to the car." Todoroki would do so and would walk around Lady Nagant before saying, "Be quick about it, we've got stuff to do." Then Deku would nod at him, and Lady Nagant would pretty much just say, "Look, I know exactly what's going to happen here. You're going to take that yayo back to Chisaki, right? And pretty much Deku would just nod and say, yeah, you bet your ass, bro. One of us could have just died. Fuck that. Lady Nagant would then say, look, I'm going to give you an option here, and I probably recommend that you take it. You and your friend could learn a lot and become a lot stronger. Deku would hear this and would actually say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to need power if I'm going to start making all this money. And I know that's not the stage that it comes in, you know, first it's, what do you say, first it's the money, then it's the power, and then it's the women. So yeah. Anyway, I know that's gonna be in a little bit of an out of it order, but I guess sort of starting as of when he returns the yayo, they're pretty much gonna have 5 grand, which is not a lot to much, but back in that time frame, well, not in that time frame, let's just say this is in the current events of My Hero, right? 16. Drops off the yayo to Chisaki, gets paid, well, more than what's expected because of the whole fuck up of the situation and how, you know, they were almost killed. However, they would have not told him about the whole quirk erasing bullets just because they weren't sure if they should, right? Like, it wasn't really that much of an important detail to them, and they are not aware yet that he is the one creating them, or how they're created, but again, that will all be unfolded soon. Then from here, he would pretty much tell Chisaki that he is going to go away for roughly 2 years, him and Todoroki, because of family issues, and Chisaki would be like, yeah, that's fine, you know, our business isn't really even up and going yet, and that's because I'm going to push all of the events back multiple years just because of such a differing timeline. And I do mean that because there's also a different One For All user, or new, I guess, host for One For All and whatnot. So yeah, the whole timeline is going to be very, 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 very different. And I do genuinely mean that in a lot of different senses. Anyway, in this 2 years, pretty much summed up, Todoroki and Deku are going to go train with Lady Nagant. And that is pretty much just because Lady Nagant was able to tell from having a brief convo with Deku that he is the right sort of man to try and, you know, I guess, deal with the evil in the world if he needs to. And he can become the top, you know, he can become the best of the best. He just needs to think carefully, needs to be a lot stronger. So that's why Lady Nagant's going out of her way to do this. Because she knows that she doesn't have the same resolve that Deku does, or that my boy Antonio does. Because he's a different breed. That's all he is, man. So, from here, we're going to skip 2 years. Now, in this 2 years, my boy Deku and Todoroki would finally come back to the open streets of Japan. Well, not really open, because every single city and little place is boarded off, which is kind of sad, but you know, it is what it is. But from here, sadly, this is actually where I'm going to pass the mic onto my awesome homie, the one and only Bleach Unbound, aka Aizen.
Yo, what is up, everyone? So far, Rouge did his part, and now it's time for mine, and I hope I can satisfy. Now, last time we had left off over the 2-year time skip. Now, during this time skip here, pretty much Deku, Todoroki, and Lady Nagant were getting more into the district of Osaka, and, you know, making the product, the yo-yo, I forgot, I always forget what it's called, but they're just making product and doing real estate, buying a house, buying other houses, and then trying to expand their territory. They also got a few henchmen and dealers, so they can start their own distribution, and just soon enough, they are now going to cut a deal to sell their product in high levels, like not even like 10 pounds or 20 pounds, more like 40 pounds weekly to a certain family which has risen over the years of the separated country of Japan. And what made things more appealing in this what if was Japan seemed more appealing to other cultures, so they immigrated over here and sort of settled down, spreading their culture, creating a diverse, sort of futuristic modern day Japan. That's like the way I can sum things up. And people had mostly came from America because in Japan the crime rates were lower, and obviously the distribution level of a certain products, let's say, wasn't at its peak yet. It's gonna be here soon, but yeah, pretty much, guys. Honestly, let's just get into it. So pretty much Deku and Todoroki would be standing at the entrance of Osaka, and the city had changed. There was more a variety of restaurants, and over the 2 years, sort of, I would say Deku would learn Spanish, sort of like how Scarface did. I mean, I don't see why not. He visited so many places over the world, he had to at least learn one other language, and the fact that he sort of has a quirk which is similar to that of Scarface, I mean, it wouldn't be too much out of the question to have him learn Spanish. Even a quirkless person could learn Spanish. But after their training, pretty much they'd be walking through, as let's say they walk like maybe a few blocks, in which they would make it to their house. Now, it wasn't too big, it was kind of a modest house, and once you would walk in, they would go upstairs and they would see Lady Nagan, right? She just got back from one of her contracts or hit missions, whatever you want to call them. So they would sort of kind of recap, or not recap, but it's sort of like that type of vibe where characters in a fiction sort of flash back to who they were. And over the years, Deku had sort of raised his charisma levels, and please do not think this is a D&D reference. I mean, it'd be cool and all. I mean, he did actually like get good dice rolls. I mean, nothing. Let's just more tangents. Okay. This is honestly a what if, just purely manifested of tangents. Honestly, it's like we might have to make a what if of what if we didn't do tangents. So. And there would probably still be tensions. So it's like in our blood. So pretty much after, like, they would kind of recap. Deku would remember he had a deal with a certain family, the Yaoyorozu family, and they had been rising up due to the division in Japan. Legit, every district is split between borders: Tokyo, Osaka, Okinawa, and Shibuya, Saitama. I'm trying to remember some other districts, but so far those are the only ones that come to mind. And they're gonna be meeting in Sotenbori. That was pretty much just the district of clubs and pleasure. Pretty much, it was like known as the #1 pleasure districts. And if you don't know, get the reference. It's kind of like a Yakuza 0 reference, but pretty much they would get in their car and they would drive over. As they would make it to a restaurant, and it was kind of unordinary. It was more of a Mexican based or Southern American based restaurant or food chain. And once they would walk in, Nagan would say that the dealer told them to just act normally and sit down. As they do that and they order and all, and they sit down. So once they would sit down, a woman would walk over to them, asking them like how they are enjoying the food, sort of just like the usual here. Like, she was doing that with every person who was sitting there, and she would ask if she could sit down, in which she would then ask if they were the customers. And Deku would realize like this was their buyer, as he would nod his head. And she would ask, how much do you have? How much product do you have on hand? and he would say 40 pounds, ready to go at a moment's notice. And she would, tell them that they'll be approached before the deal and told to drop off, and the drop off would go usual, right? Like usual. In which, sort of, that would kind of mark the end of the meeting, in which Deku, Todoroki, Nagant, they would head back to their safe house, in which they would wait for the call, right? They would just, talk and do things, and obviously we know Scarface, he uses certain products, like THZ, and certain sugar, okay? And pretty much that's just what he does, honestly. It's what boosts his ability. And Rogue was talking about a hidden ability. This was actually a hidden ability. It has something to relate to it. So just a tiny hint. We might get into it maybe a few minutes here. So after, let's say, about the next day, they would wake up and they would hear a knock at the door. Now, once they would get there, they would see a pizza delivery. And, they were given the pizza. Even, they assumed it was probably part of the way to get the message. So he would open it and there would be no pizza, but there was a note inside telling them the address and to be there in 1 hour, or it's no deal at all. So they would immediately get up and they would pack up all the product and dip it into sort of seasoning to block the smell, just in case they were stopped and there was canine dogs, right? That kind of blocks the smell, right? And just sort of heavy seasoning, like how Gus dipped the blue sky. If you know what that means, if you watch Breaking Bad, you know what the reference is. They dipped the blue sky in their Los Pollos Hermanos seasoning, so it can block the smell from the canine dogs whenever they would go to the border patrol or just the borders to other states. So what would happen here is they would do something akin to that, and they would pack it up and put it in the car. Throughout the whole ride, they were careful. They were going maybe just a few miles above the speed limit, like 3, 4, not trying to give any probable cause to a stop. So, because obviously due to the futuristic time, let's just say there's a lot of stop and searches, so there would be no reason to stop them, right? So they would be driving, let's say about 20 minutes, and they would make it to the drop-off point, in which they would drop it off, and it wasn't to the original dealer, like the owner of the place or person that just met them there. It was a completely different person, like a henchman per se. So they would shake hands and they would go about their business, right? And they would be transferred the money through a wiretap, I believe. No, not wiretap. They would kind of a wire transfer. That's what it's called. And they would get their money. And surprisingly, they were shocked because, one, how does the dealer take so much bulk, right? Usually some dealers are scared to even get near 10 pounds, but 40 pounds without even a blink, there was no hesitation. So they were thinking that they would try to make more product for her and they would get more money, right? And soon maybe this will give them enough money to start their own distribution. But the places where distribution were keenly centered towards were Tokyo, because that's where the docks are. And if you had the control of the docks, you had control to transport to different countries, not just in Japan. So they need to learn how they're trying their best to but get green cards to go to Tokyo and sort of expand. But there's one troubling matter there. There's a distributor there, and he's kind of not welcome to other visitors. And this would be none other than Lalo Salamanca. Now, if you don't know who Lalo Salamanca is, it's sort of Better Call Saul reference. Think of it as an OC, not really Lalo fakes his death in New Mexico and comes down there and pretty much starts a distribution in Japan. It's just like an OC who has a Lalo's personality, and it does what Lalo does. He's good at numbers, he's smart, terrifyingly smart, and they need to find a way to take over, or at least befriend him, partner up with him. So they would make their way down, or after getting their paperwork, let's say maybe 2-3 weeks, and they would make their way down to Tokyo. Now, once they would get there, they would make a few deals with Lalo, kind of offering to do hit jobs for them, in which they were told that a manager of a nightclub was going to have a bunch of hitmen shoot up his club. And then everyone's all like, oh, okay, that's fine, we just have to protect the nightclub. So they would make their way down, as it'd be around evening tomorrow that evening, and they were pretty much putting on their disguises and blending in. As once they would get there, they would see it's popping. It seems like a pretty popular nightclub, and maybe they just assumed this was a rival nightclub, because this is Japan. I mean, you have the pleasure district, Sotenburi, which is literally split between 5 clubs. If you don't play Yakuza 0, there's 5 clubs, and you have to beat all of them in order to unlock Majuma's Mad Dog of Shimano fighting style. And that's sort of kind of something that would happen here, and that kind of correlates to the lore of this, sort of, in a sense. So they would make their way down there, and they would be in disguise, as they'd suddenly be approached, right? As they'd look up and they would see someone. It was sort of suspicious, but it kind of confused him. This was none other than Kai Chisaki, as he recognized, Tony and Todoroki. Obviously, if you don't know, I'm calling him Tony. I might have accidentally called him Deku before, but just to set things straight, might as well call him Tony from now on. So, he would recognize them, and they would all act like friendly, and he would ask them, like, I thought you were dead, not the worrying side, but like sort of like saying, like, I thought you were dead, since you were gone for 2 years, sort of like in normal tone. And obviously Tony would say he's been training and expanding his territory, and obviously, Chisaki's like, oh, you've became a businessman. I respect that. How about after this, we can have a deal. I trade you the usual bullets, and you trade me your product. I heard you've been selling in bulk. I like that. And he would ask Chisaki how much he needs, and Chisaki would respond saying, how much can you get me? And obviously, Tony would respond saying he can get 200 pounds a week, and that's at their peak. If they wanted to wait a few weeks, they could get maybe 600 pounds. And Chisaki, he would kind of smack the table in sort of, not anger, but excitement practically, right? And he's like, 600, if you get me 600 pounds in maybe 2-3 weeks, I'll probably give you 15-20 full boxes of Quark racing bullets, and maybe I'll add a few more just on the house. And obviously they'd all agree, they'd shake hands, and they'd have a toast, right? Kind of like what businessmen do, I guess. And they would kind of sit down and sort of talk, and sort of like how they're just talking like businessman to businessman, or woman, considering Nagant's there. But she's sort of like, I wouldn't say she's not really his right-hand man or woman, because that's what Todoroki's role is. Think of it as she's like head of security, and Todoroki's like his right-hand man, so he's above like all of that, and he oversees his future empire, his drug empire. So after, they'd sit down for a bit, Chisaki would say, so you heard about the hitman coming here soon? As he would say, Deku, Tony, forgive me, would, assure, like, nod his head, as he would say, well, they're from one of All For One's gang. You know how they get, the League of Villains, they want to flex their power on local clubs and enforce that they're above, always flexing their power. And Deku would realize, like, he'd remember he heard about the League of Villains, as he would say, didn't they attack the USJ like 2 years back? Maybe 1.5 years back. And Chisaki would kind of assure this, saying, yeah, they did damage to All Might, and they ruined his public image. And Tony was kind of confused. How so? As Chisaki would explain that they made him look weak. I mean, All Might couldn't beat them. I mean, All Might beats every villain. I mean, that's what every civilian has in their head now. And with the whole immigration system happening here from other countries, specifically America, new people coming here will be very hesitant about staying. And Tony would kind of realize this as, right as he's sort of about to respond, he would hear gunfire as they look up, and he'd nod at Todoroki and Nagant as they'd immediately like get in action. So they'd be walking, right, using the crowd as a way to sort of as body shields, not really body shields, but to get a jump on the attackers. There were 6 men, sort of paramilitaries it seems, and they all had assault rifles, so they were ready. Let's just say that. And Deku would reach into his jacket pocket, and he would use his pistol, which, I mean, every time, if you don't know, he uses quirky racing bullets. I mean, he's always been using them. It's a very good asset, especially after the 2 years he's gotten hand-to-hand combat and marksmanship. He's possibly as good, or maybe even has the potential to be better than Nagant when it comes to marksmanship. So he would put a suppressor on this, try to keep this as quiet as possible, as he would appear in front of the hitmen, or at least towards the left out of these 6, and they would immediately like aim their guns at him, as Tony, in trying to be as fast as possible, would grab one of their guns and then use him as a body shield, as they all like shoot him, like pretty much sort of using him as a human meat shield, as he would grab their guns and then use his body as a shield, as he would kind of put his arms to the right, sort of like kind of shooting randomly, like blind firing, hopefully he'd be able to hit them. So after this would happen, he'd probably get like nick 2 or 3 of them, but they had really good armor. Like when I say normal armor, like from modern day, I don't mean that. I mean more like cork-like armor, like titanium, like heavy materials that are hard to penetrate. Only maybe with a cork racing bullet or an explosion, maybe you can penetrate that armor, but so far normal bullets aren't gonna do it. So he would aim his pistol and shoot one right through the noggin, let's just say that. If you know, you know. And he would push the body off of him, kind of knocking down 2 people, as there was the last one, as he would disarm him, and the other, he would then, the paramilitary would then reach down and, get his knife out before then trying to slice at his throat. As Tony would then grab his wrist and then like shatter it, as he'd grab the knife and pierced it through his esophagus, or his throat. And the man would then, kind of stagger backwards as blood kind of seeps through his throat, as Tony would then pretty much kick him through the stomach, sending him through the doors that were pretty much near the front doors, creating sort of like, if this was a movie, it would kind of create a nice visualizing scene. So after he had defeated the paramilitaries, he had, there was one that was left alive, and he had pretty much interrogated him for information, saying who he worked for. And obviously these paramilitaries, or soldiers, they were not really willing to give information so easily. So he would then aim the bullet at the man, as the man really recognized like the pistol being like a syringe-like pistol with the cork erasing bullet and everything, and he would kind of start sweating bullets, right, realizing like if he shoots me like anywhere, my cork is gone forever. And he would easily just start spilling information. He's one of, let's say, All For One's hitmen, and these were his strongest. They came here to cause terror. I mean, that kind of sounds like terrorism, but they came here to kind of flex their power. Like, they have resources to take over the city and take over Japan, and soon the entire, planet. So he would start spilling information about the League of Villains hideout and everything, like all the members, and even hideouts where their key information are held, and sort of, hidden warehouses where nomus are held, and even the specific one where the doctor who makes nomus is, I think it was like, I can't remember his name, Ugachak? I'm not even trying to, I just butchered it, but sort of all mostly things to take down some of their muscle when it comes to like their nomu and their henchmen. So afterwards, Deku would thank him for the information before then shooting him through the mouth. As he would then get up, as he would walk over the piles of dead bodies, as he would walk over to Todoroki, who had just finished freezing the guy's face. And let's just say, he's sort of like his brother. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe, I don't know. He would have... Dabi's a little more crazy now that he fused with the whole Nomu, I think it was, or he became like half Nomu. So they'd be walking out, and they would report to Lalo directly, bringing evidence as he had cut off one of their pinkies. Right? It was a sort of form of respect in Japan to bring your bosses a pinky, right? And obviously that was mostly the Yakuza, and I tried holding that here because they are in Japan, so why not practice some of the customs? So he would bring him Lalo, or he would bring a finger to Lalo, proving like he did it, and he'd even get confirmation from the club, like, yeah, they protected us, or they protected the business. And he'd kind of like laugh a bit, like laugh sort of like cheerfully, like how Lalo does. If you watch Better Call Saul, like how he laughs and all. And yeah, so after this would happen, Lalo would say, he would reach into his desk and get out a bag of cash, as he would hand it over, as he'd say, on the house, those men you dealt with, they're from the League of Villains, and they also somewhat are partnered with Chisaki. You didn't hear it from me, but their leader, Shigaraki, is planning an attack, planning for... I've never seen this much weapons and men. Like, they're all pretty much planning a war. And, Tony and Todoroki, they'd realize this. As what would happen is they would kind of sort of, thank him for the information, sort of like in a businessman style way, or woman, since the gun is there. I'll just say business-like way. That sounds a little better. And they would leave the hideout, I guess, as they would head towards their home. They would go to lay down, in which they would suddenly hear like maybe 2 hours when they fall asleep, right? They hear a sort of a pin fall to the floor, and like Tony having like, so he sort of has like enhanced hearing, and Nagan has like sort of enhanced vision. So as soon as they got up, like, and obviously Tony being sort of trained in marksmanship, he would have such that enhanced sight. You would see a pin on the floor as a grenade is like a rolling on the floor. As what would happen is he would quickly like sort of push the couch on top of it to like block the explosion radius, as he would immediately go upstairs and he would look down and see about maybe 2 like armor like cars outside with maybe a dozen men waiting, right, with like assault rifles and everything. And Deku would quickly go to a sort of closet, as he would see his wardrobe, right? As he would open it and press a button inside, as it would sort of open this secret compartment. As he would go inside, and there would be weapons just everywhere. As he would get a RPG, right? You heard me, an RPG. As he would get it, and he would go upstairs, and he would shoot it, and let's just say RPG plus huge armored car equals explosions, right? As they'd realize their safe house is now compromised, they need to go somewhere else. And from the background, All For One is watching them escape, as he was given the information by some corrupt heroes and some certain businessmen. So as they're pretty much running away in the distance to their car and driving off to go to their hideout, they would realize like the insignia, that was the League of Villains, and they did damage. So now that he knows All For One sees him as a threat, he was gonna try and meet him first and try to do a deal, right, at the very least. And that's what he did. So he set up a deal with via using Chisaki as a sort of voucher. They would set up a meeting, as they would meet in the League of Villains bar. But they did not come alone. They brought all their henchmen and their enforcers. Like they were ready for a shootout pretty much. They would all be waiting outside, and they'd said if they didn't come out in the next maybe 5 minutes, just blow the place up, right? And obviously they would understand this, and Deku or Tony and Todoroki and Nagant would walk in, as Nagant's by the door, sort of in the bodyguard position or stance, as Todoroki and Tony would sit down, as All For One and Shigaraki would be there. As Dabi, obviously Dabi being Shoto's brother, would see like Shoto, and bro, like how many people have like half white hair and half red hair? Like you don't know that many people. And obviously like Shoto, with now his connections, but being with Tony for 2 years now, like he knows like every one of the League of Villains member, like who they really are. As they'd see twice Muscular, Dabi, Toga, and Shigaraki and Kurogiri, and those were their muscle pretty much. So Tony would then start talking with All For One, sort of trying to negotiate, as All For One would say, you make a lot of product, right? You're good at it, so you can make the blue sky and the white powder. The Yao Yao, I believe it's called. The Yao Yao. He can make the Yao Yao and the blue sky. Obviously, if you know what these products are, he says it in their official term, okay? So I'm just saying that just for this purpose. So obviously, Tony would say, yes, of course I know how to cook. Why do you want to know? Do you want product? As All For One would say, I heard you can make 200 pounds a week. I have a super lab, right? I want you to cook for me for 1 year. And in this year, I will give you, how about 25 million each? So 75 million, you split it between yourselves. And I'd say that's a good deal. As Tony would be confused, or sort of confused about one thing. As he would ask, why would you attack us and send your men to that club knowing full well we'd be there? As he would answer, or All For One would answer, that he was trying to get their attention. He needed them to react to something as big as him sending his paramilitaries to attack them. I mean, that would definitely get their attention. And Tony would say, make it 100 million. Actually, 125, as he would kind of be a little confused. Why 125? He couldn't split it 3 ways. And of course, because Tony knows why. As what would happen is all four would agree, and this is when we'll do a time skip. So throughout this whole time skip, they would cook for him, right? Also leaving some for the side to distribute throughout America, China, Japan, and South America. And doing so, this created allies with the cartel down in Mexico, who are allied with Colombians, who the let's say the League of Villains know. And since Chisaki was doing deals with the Colombians, that sort of created a mutual agreement between All For One and the Mexican cartel. So this would mean more of their men down here, and let's just say now is the time for them to take down All For One. They were gonna get their money, take down All For One, and rob him of his riches, and soon enough take over Japan. As they were given a job by Chisaki as a sort of mutual agreement, since they work for All For One pretty much, or work with All For One, they are pretty much partners with Chisaki. They were supposed to kill a UN national who was coming to visit Japan, and it was a United States chairman pretty much, or senator, or whatever you want to say. Senator, yeah, see, like sort of like the representative for the whole 100 members of the Senate. So he was told to kill him, right? And they were doing research, making sure that their family wouldn't be in the car at the same time, in which, well, they weren't, or at least when they were doing their recon. So when it comes to the day to do just that, they're waiting outside in their car with Chisaki and Tony being there. They would then obviously be there, as he's been doing his research, doing his sort of Gus Fring thing, okay? As he saw the real reason the cork erasing bullets were being made, but now he was waiting for a good reason to kill Chisaki. As now, they would see the national and they would see the families in the car, and we know Tony's morals. He doesn't go after children, he doesn't go after women. Those sort of things he gets the most. It's kind of a common motive when it comes to most fictional pieces and their main characters or antagonist, but it's kind of respectable in a sense when you're coming to this perspective. So as the car's driving, Tony would finally have the justification, as they're driving, Nagant would then aim the gun, and shoot Chisaki through the back of the head. Tony would then quickly do a reverse and would head towards the river in Tokyo, as they would dump his body after decomposing it into the river, as obviously they'd realized the bomb they placed on the bottom of his car to kill him was noticed. So the whole United States are they're ready to go to war practically. And not United States, but sort of they saw this as a threat, right? And so did the United Nations. Everyone's always pretty much tensions were rising. This causes pressing issues for distribution. The Mexican cartel would be forced back to Mexico as it was pushing on the federales and also other forms of government that were working with All For One. So that means less men and less distribution, sort of thinning out All For One's empire or underworld empire. So about a week later, Tony would then hire, let's say, a few thousand soldiers, right? Just fixers and soldiers, and also some of his henchmen. And he would have his henchmen and Nagant, train them and get them sort of into what they're about to do, as he would receive a call. This would be from none other than All For One. As he would pick up the phone and he would ask what happened and why is Chisaki missing. As he would say that the job went wrong and some heroes managed to pick him up, and now they're holding him in a top secret hideout, and I think he's taken a deal. As All For One would start overreacting on the phone, you can hear him, he's losing his cool. As obviously he would start losing it on Tony, just like Sosa did to Tony in the movie. As he often would send hitmen after Tony Reed, knowing this was a move to thin out his distribution. And he would also be mad about the fact that they pretty much got caught for their attempt, or the bomb was seen, and now all of America is crying out for justice in a sense, and that led for his distribution to be thinned out. So he would, often would send a bunch of hitmen to his mansion. I mean, he had gotten a mansion over the time skip and the 1 year. I mean, if you make $125 million, then let's just say you're doing pretty well. So on that day they're sending it, Alphorn is realizing his plan is noticed about Nagant. The secret quirk he given her to make her self-destruct. Well, Tony always knew about that, and he was going to use the quirk erasing bullet to shoot Nagant, and also, obviously, if you didn't know, save Eri too. That's why he also killed Chisaki. So, after this would happen, he would shoot Nagant in the foot, and have Eri give her back her quirk, right? Obviously, this happened over the course of many few weeks and months of careful planning, and it went well. So now they have a distributor, being Momo, on their side in a partnership, and they also have Nagant, who isn't gonna die, and because she's like his second most powerful soldier, and now they're going against the League of Villains, and they're most likely gonna win. Alright, Todoroki knows he's gonna be fighting Toya, and Nagant is going to be handling Twice, Toga, Muscular, and Shigaraki, while Tony is fighting against most of All For One himself and his henchmen. So he's sitting down in his desk waiting as he has his weapons ready, as he would hear them coming, right? They would be rappelling up his windows and busting through his doors as the security is doing its job pretty much. Most of them are being thinned out, as he would turn around and see about maybe 3 people rappelling up his window. Obviously, he would then grab the rappels and just toss them in. This is a mansion we're talking about here, maybe 3-story building, 4-story at the most. They fell down and broke their leg, or let's just say they weren't walking after that. So after that would happen, he would be waiting, as he had a sort of security door which kind of kept people out and even nullified against most quirks, right? Just it would have to receive a lot of explosions and attacks from a powerful user. As he has his gun ready, as right as the door opens, right, he would then say,
"Okay, do you want to play rough? Okay. Say hello to my little friend."
And after this, obviously, all the men, they would be either gunned down, or pretty much he would start shooting explosions and from his grenade launcher inside his assault rifle, and then he would start gunning everyone down. So once this would happen, All For One, everyone, it would be shot. Obviously, All For One kind of survived that, most likely, as Tony would then walk out with the 2 assault rifles on his shoulder, as he would walk menacingly up to All For One. He would then grab him by the neck and hold him over the edge, as he would then shoot him through the face with a quirk erasing bullet. As All For One, then sort of his corpse would pretty much drop backwards into his fountain, as he was now dead. Right. After this, Tony and Momo would then start making more product. In 1 year, they had made upwards to 2,600 to 3,000 pounds for either Blue Sky or Yao Yao. And they were making billions, upwards to billions, selling to other countries like Denmark, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, and Peru. So just other countries. Honestly, I was just making up random countries there. But afterwards, he had taken over Japan. Every one of the heroes were either dead or on his payroll. Nobody could stop him here. And if you were to call this a happy ending, It's just your perception. But this will be where I'm leaving the movie off for What If Deku was Scarface. But without further ado, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you're watching this on my channel, sorry I didn't really upload the other 2 series I was doing. But if you're watching this on Rogue's channel, I hope you kind of stick around. He's got a lot planned. He's been talking to me about it, and let's just say I'm excited to see it, and I'm sure you're excited to see it. But without further ado, guys, peace out.